The Legend of Zelda is a great game. The Legend of Zelda was developed and published by Nintendo in Japan in 1986 and the United States in 1987. The game was produced and directed by Shigeru Miyamoto and designed by Takashi Tezuka, who would both become legends in the video game industry. The first and foremost influence on The Legend of Zelda is the classic fantasy fairy tale quest that exists in almost every culture. A brave boy embarks on an adventure to save a princess from evil. It's a tale as old as time. Pen and paper RPGs also influenced important gameplay elements of The Legend of Zelda, like searching dungeons and fighting monsters. But perhaps the most important influence on Zelda's core gameplay concept was the experiences of director Shigeru Miyamoto as he explored the countryside in his youth. Miyamoto wanted to create a game that offered a similar experience of joy through discovery. The Legend of Zelda's graphics are refreshingly simple, and considering that the game released 35 years ago, in the early days of the Nintendo Entertainment System, The Legend of Zelda still looks good, if not great. The visuals are clean and colorful. Classic NES Link may look like a little chubster elf compared to his modern, svelte HD physique, but hey, he still got the job done in 8-bit style. Koji Kondo, another future game industry legend, composed the music for The Legend of Zelda, and in so doing, created one of the most iconic main themes in video game history. And it's a good thing it's so amazing, because it plays pretty much for the entire game. Thankfully, the excellent and also iconic sound effects add some welcome variety to the soundtrack. Ganon, Prince of Darkness, has stolen the mystical Triforce to use for his nefarious purposes. But Princess Zelda broke it apart to protect it, and Link must find its scattered pieces to defeat Ganon and save Zelda and the Kingdom of Hyrule. This simple yet elegant story works so perfectly that it forms the basis for almost every future Zelda game. After quickly setting up the story, The Legend of Zelda just drops players in the deep end. No explanations, no tutorials, just go, kid. In the very first screen, there is an old man who delivers a very famous message, and a sword, of course, because, it's dangerous to go alone. And thus, the tone of Link's adventure and the gameplay is set. In the year 2021, The Legend of Zelda's Overworld map is so famous you can buy it in the form of wallpaper. Hardcore players have it memorized. But for a player who is new to The Legend of Zelda, navigating the Overworld's 128 screens can be daunting. Even for those who've completed the game before, like myself, the lack of a detailed in-game map is frustrating. During my first playthrough, I grew so frustrated that I consulted a map online and was immediately struck by guilt. How could I call myself a true gamer any longer? But later I discovered that the original game actually came bundled with a paper map. And then I didn't feel so bad after all. While the exploration can be frustrating, it is also very rewarding. Mastering the map does make you feel pretty heroic, and stumbling upon a huge stash of rupees or a sword upgrade is immensely satisfying. As you explore Hyrule, bombing walls and burning shrubs along the way, you will also be fighting for your little elven life. Link's opponents in The Legend of Zelda are, quite honestly, super annoying. Even when your gear is upgraded, you still can't just rest on your laurels. Enemy monsters will take those laurels from you and beat you to death with them. Figuratively speaking, of course. Breath of the Wild fans will be happy to know that Lynels have been a pain since the beginning of the franchise. But the difficulty of combat is a big part of the fun. The constant challenge keeps players on their toes and makes victory more meaningful. Original reviews of The Legend of Zelda are difficult to find, but the sales numbers are a great indicator of its popularity. The NES game sold 6.5 million copies, making it a huge success for Nintendo, and ensuring that geniuses like Shigeru Miyamoto, Takashi Tezuka, and Koji Kondo would go on to make many more amazing games together. The Legend of Zelda began what many, including myself, believe to be the greatest video game series in history. It proved that RPG-like experiences could work on home consoles, and built a solid foundation of story and gameplay concepts for future Zelda games that still enchant players 35 years later. Rewarding exploration, challenging combat, and its enduring legacy make The Legend of Zelda one of the great games.